Breakfast Club, let's go to work. Let's go to work. Write in your notes. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 10. It's a familiar one, but we coming from the Message Bible. I need y'all to hear. And you know the Message Bible, when you read the Message, you know sometimes the Message Bible, it can be a little, it can be a little, but you know sometimes the Message Bible, they really capture the spirit of the writer. And man, I think they did this. They did this with this one. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 10 in the Message Bible. This is my man Paul. Paul had some visions, and you know, Paul was out there doing the thing. He was on the mission field. He was making stuff shake. He was making things happen. He had gotten these great revelations, but Paul began to put things in perspective, you know, for us as the readers and for the people that he was writing this letter to. And he starts to kind of put things in perspective, and he pulls out one of my favorite words. And that is what that song from Israel and New Breed is all about: grace. Grace. And I know it sounds like a real religious, a real churchy kind of word, but man, when you think about it and you understand what it is, when you understand what grace is, and you understand the power of grace, and you understand that it's unmerited favor, it is not something that you can do. It's not something you can't earn it. You can't be good enough. It's just because it's just because God is God. I don't know if when you were a kid, if your parents ever did something for you just because it was something you didn't think you had done anything. You know, you had just done your chores and you made good grades and you did the stuff that you would normally do anyway, but this was a just because kind of act. And that's what grace feels like. You remember that feeling that you had? That's grace. And so that same grace, what Paul is talking about, it even exists when we going through test and trial. It even exists when we being challenged. It even exists when we don't know which way to turn. It even exists when we got crucial decisions to make in our life. It even exists when we trying to build something new. It even exists when we trying to close old doors. Somebody that's in the chat, type grace. Just type grace. Let's type grace. All right, let's go to work, Breakfast Club. Let's go to work. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 7 through 10 in the Message Bible. Because of the extravagance of those revelations, because of what I saw was just so deep and it was so heavy. And so I wouldn't get the big head. Because, you know, Paul did a lot of stuff. So he's saying, no. I know that God is showing me these things. I ain't did nothing to earn it. So I wouldn't get the big head. I was given the gift of a handicap to keep me in constant touch with my limitations. Oh, man. Satan's angels did his best to get me down. What he in fact did was push me to my knees. Glory to the Son of God. No danger then walking around high and mighty because I'm on my knees. At first, I didn't think of it as a gift. And I begged God to remove it. 3 times I did that. And then he told me, my grace is enough. My grace is enough. It's all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness. Once I heard that, I was glad to let it happen. I quit focusing on the handicap and began appreciating the gift. It was a case of Christ's strength moving in on my weakness. So God's strength was about to overtake my infirmity. Somebody need to hear that. God's strength is about to overtake what it is that you lacking. God's strength is about to overtake that challenge. Now I take limitations in stride and with good cheer. These limitations that cut me down to size, abuse, accidents, oppositions, bad breaks, I just let Christ take over. And so the weaker I get, the stronger I become. Glory to the Son of God. Man, I'm about to run smooth through here. All right, if you taking notes, put this thought in your notes. The discomfort zone. The discomfort zone. Now, I know some of the ones that's in the Breakfast Club that's a little bit older like me. You're a little bit more seasoned. Y'all remember that old show, The Twilight Zone. Y'all remember that show, The Twilight Zone. And you remember when The Twilight Zone used to come on, it had like the little ominous music and all of that. And you didn't have to be in the room to know that the Twilight Zone was coming on TV. But one of the hallmarks of that show was that if you ever watched it, the show wasn't necessarily scary per se. That's not what the intent was. But I think that the filmmakers and the producers, what they wanted to do was they wanted to make you uncomfortable. They wanted to make you uncomfortable enough so that you continue to stand, so that you continue to stay there. And no matter how crazy the Twilight Zone got, you kept coming back week after week after week after week, and you wanted to see what the next episode was. And so here we got our guy Paul. You know, he starts off saying, you know, because of all of these great things that I've seen, the revelations that God has shown me, the things that I have had the opportunity to do. Because if you don't know anything about Paul's life, Paul was not always a believer. Paul was once upon a time, Paul was a great persecutor of those that were Christ followers. Paul went through a very public and a very dramatic conversion experience where he was called out. And then Paul was sent on a mission that would be the counter of what the current disciples thought. See, the current disciples, they thought Christ was for the Jews because Jesus was Jewish. But then God sent Paul on a special assignment. He said, I'm sending you to the Gentiles and the Jews, but I'm sending you to these places. I'm sending where I know they don't believe in me. I'm sending you to a bunch of people that's just like you. I'm sending you to a bunch of people who they don't believe. Their faith is in the balance. And so that's where I'm sending you to. I just believe that there are people that we go through life and now we come to a season where God is about to send us to a place. You take that new job role or you move to this new company, and now all of a sudden you got a bunch of people that you didn't know. You got a bunch of people that you don't know, rather. You got systems that you don't know. You got processes you don't know. And there is a level of discomfort that is there. If you've ever started something new, a new diet program, a new training program, if you fast for the first time, there's a discomfort that is there. Even if you fast for the 937th time, it's always a level of discomfort. When you have to get up, you remember the Easter speech, when you had to get up in front of the whole church in Sunday school when you were a kid, that was a level of discomfort. The first time that you ever had to give a public speech in high school or college, that was a level of discomfort. And so Paul is talking about, hey, God done shown me all this stuff. He done gave me access and allowed me to do all this. But so I wouldn't get the big head and start feeling myself, it says that I was given a handicap that would keep me in constant touch with my limitations. The King James Version said he was given a thorn in his flesh. Glory to the Son of God. He was given a thorn. If you ever been pricked by a thorn, it's the thing about the thorn is the thorn don't necessarily hurt when it first happened because you don't really know it's in there. But once it's in there, it becomes uncomfortable. And so this thought around the discomfort zone, I believe, is what Paul is really trying to illustrate to us. What he's trying to say to us, that even though I'm uncomfortable, even though I'm pressed right now, even though I'm challenged right now, it does not stop me. It does not limit me. It does not leave me without hope, because I'm still the same person. And most importantly, his grace is enough. His grace is enough. So he said that I was given this handicap, or this thorn in my flesh, because number one, the purpose of the discomfort zone is to keep you in touch with your limitations. I'm already in there. So if you taking notes, you behind already. So first and foremost, what you need to know about the discomfort zone, and I know we love to talk about the comfort zone, so I just decided to flip it. That's all, because we love to start talking about the comfort zone. Oh, growth don't take place in the comfort zone. Yeah, but if you ain't in the comfort zone, then that means you in the discomfort zone. You in that place where you don't feel it all the time. You in that place where you might be a little pressed, you might be a little challenged, it might be a little hard, you might have to focus a little more, or whatever the case is. But he said, hey, I was given this handicap, this thorn in my flesh, and the first thing we need to know about the discomfort zone is that I got it because I needed to stay in touch with my limitations. Y'all, listen to what I'm telling you. We so quick to want to disconnect from our limitations. This is how people end up in pride. This is how you end up doing something that's not in God's will. This is how we end up moving out of season and moving out of turn and not operating according to the plan that God laid out for us. Because see, what we do is we do what Paul was trying to avoid, and what the thorn was trying to keep him from avoiding. See, it was trying to keep him, number one, it said, from getting a big head, from starting to feel himself, and from starting to rely too much on his own ability. So he had to devise a way to keep Paul in touch with his own limitations. So every time he get ready to move in a certain way, that discomfort kicked in, and then he know, oh, wait a minute. See, I know I can't do that. I got to take it a little bit slower. If you ever had back pain, then you know sometimes it calls you to move a little bit slower than normal. But once you get going, once you start to kind of warm up a little bit, it's okay. But if you engage in certain activities, that thing will remind you, oh, wait a minute now, you're doing too much. Somebody type in the chat, stop doing so much. Stop doing so much. Stop doing so much. Stop doing so much. Because God already gave you the plan. He's already gave you the vision. And a lot of times what we'll try to do is we'll try to fast track, and we'll start moving in our own strength, as opposed to relying on his strength, which is made perfect when we're at our weakest. I think that's a pretty good trade-off. So the first thing is that the whole point of the discomfort zone is not to beat you down. It is not to discourage you. God will allow you to be uncomfortable in a place, in a season, with people, in environments, all because he wants you to remember what he's saying to us is, this ain't necessarily something that you can do. This ain't something that I even want you to do. I believe my Bible says, and yours probably said too, that the battle is not yours, but God's. Glory to the Son of God. The battle is not yours, but God. And so if the battle is not ours, then that means there's going to be, if there is a battle, that is a place where it's very likely to get uncomfortable, and it's going to get uncomfortable real quick. So we got to learn to navigate this place of discomfort, y'all. We got to learn to navigate. We got to learn to know, just because you uncomfortable, that don't mean you stopped. Just because you uncomfortable, that don't mean that it's the end. Just because you uncomfortable, that don't mean that you don't have hope. Discomfort is a place that we got to learn to navigate. And then we can learn to navigate when we uncomfortable. Then it makes the comfort zone irrelevant. Don't you hear what I just said? If we can learn to navigate when we uncomfortable, then you ain't really got to worry about the comfort zone, because you'll always remember that discomfort, and it'll motivate you. It'll keep you going. And so Paul is saying, hey, it was just to keep me in constant touch with my limitations. And then right after that, it says, see, Satan's anger or Satan's angel did his best to get me down. But what he in fact did, and here's our second point, was push me to my knees. The discomfort zone to make you pray different. The discomfort zone to make you call on God different. The discomfort zone to make you lift your eyes into the hills, which comes your help. Let me tell y'all a story. So I have a friend of mine who is retired military and 30 some odd years, had led soldiers into combat. We thank all of them for their service. Glory to God. And I remember him telling me this story in his last time being deployed to Afghanistan. He said, Fitz, he said, man, it was this one guy in my unit. And what they did was they went out and they arrested criminals. They were the police. And he said it was this one guy. He said, and every time they would go out, it was just kind of a unspoken thing. Hey, before we go out, we praying. Glory to God. God is everywhere, y'all. But it was this one guy that had got assigned to their unit, and he wasn't a believer, and God loved him, but they still prayed anyway. And they would say he would kick up a fuss and all of this. And so they went out this one particular night, and he got injured. And my friend was there with him, and he was telling the man, you're going to be okay. We got you, da-da-da-da-da-da. And in that very moment, he accepted Christ. He accepted Christ in that very moment. He said, he looked up at me, Fitz, and he said, sorry, man, I don't want to die, man. I'm sorry all them time, man. Now I understand why you pray the way you pray, man, and you praying for us, and you asking God to watch over us and keep us safe. And I want him to do that for me right there on the spot. And so what I realized was that this is crucial what Paul is saying, because he said that Satan's angel, he meant it for my evil. He meant it to beat me down. See, we see the discomfort zone, and we see those times where we uncomfortable because we doing something new and we trying something that we ain't never tried before. I don't know who that's for, but you need to grab that, because I done said it a couple of times now. You trying something that you never tried before. You don't really know all the steps. You ain't really got all the information, so it's a little uncomfortable. Let me tell you this morning, keep moving. Just keep moving. It's somebody out there that know. You just got to ask the right questions and make the right connections. Glory to the Son of God. But he said, see, Satan's angel, he meant it so it would beat me down. But you know what? What it really did is that it pushed me to my knees. It made me pray harder. It made me seek God. It made me seek wisdom from one that is all wise. To the all wise God. Whoa, my God. To the all wise God. If any man lacks wisdom, let him ask. See, it made me go seek instruction. And see, that's what discomfort will do. Discomfort will, number one, it'll challenge you and make you face up to your own limitations. I don't know the answer. I don't have it all figured out. But you know what? I got access to the one that do. So it forced him to his knees. And then he said, there's no danger now because he's in that position. Because that position, I went to my knees. See, now I'm in position to receive. Now I'm in position, right? And it says no danger then in walking around high and mighty, because at first I didn't see it as a gift. And I begged God to remove it. Come here, 3 Hebrew boys. I think it's very safe to say them getting thrown in that fiery furnace was very uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable in the moments leading up to it. The decision that they had to make that got them thrown into it was uncomfortable. Because even though they were devout believers and they were not going to worship that statue, they knew they wasn't going to, but they had to stand there and say it. They had to stand in front of all those people and say it. They had to declare their faith in that moment out loud and in the public. And they knew what was going to happen. They knew it was going to get them thrown into the fiery furnace. But yet they stood there and they did it anyway. And I bet that in the moment that they went into that fire, they didn't see it as a gift. They knew that God could, but they even said, but if God don't, we still ain't gonna bow. And see, God ends up coming into the situation. He came into the discomfort zone along with him. That's the third thing that you got to remember. God will come into the discomfort zone along with you. And while you are going through those times of discomfort, while Paul said, I got this thorn in my flesh. You know, at first I didn't see it as a gift. And then I asked God 3 times to remove it. But then he told me this. He said, my grace is enough. It is all you need. My strength comes into its own in your weakness. In order for my strength to be made manifest, in order for God's strength to be made full and to come into full power, we got to be out of ourselves. We got to be out of the way. And so now my grace is enough. What is grace? Grace is very simply, it's unmerited favor. James 4:6 says like this, but God gives more grace. He opposes the proud and gives grace to the humble. He gives more grace. Unmerited favor. Not something that we can earn. And see, sometimes, y'all, what we really need, we don't need more information. We don't need more degrees. We need grace. See, grace and power go together. We need grace. We need God to breathe on the situation. We need God to instruct us in a situation. We need God to teach us how to move and show us where to go and who to connect with and who to disconnect with. He gives more grace. And so when we trying to navigate this comfort zone, there's 5 things that's going to happen as we are going through this comfort zone, and we see them laid out here in this 7 through 10 excerpt from 2 Corinthians 12. Number 1, greater grace is going to come. Greater grace is going to come in the discomfort zone. The Bible says that he will never leave us nor forsake us. So no matter how we moving, whatever season we in, if you are feeling yourself in an uncomfortable situation, you kind of press, you know, it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of things going on. Know that God says his grace is sufficient. Man, let me tell you, this needs to be on the wall of every business owner everywhere. I don't know about y'all, but the last few years have been challenging, and you had a lot of businesses that were open in 18 and 19 and they not open now, but there are some that are still standing fast, steadfast, unmovable, always about in the word. Man, it is by God's grace. So in the discomfort zone, number 1, the one thing that's going, or another thing that's going to happen is greater grace is going to come upon you. And see, when that greater grace comes upon you, that unmerited favor comes upon you, it gives you the ability to endure the discomfort zone. It gives you the ability to stand in there, to hang in there. And because you're not doing it in your strength. You're not doing it in your strength. Because in our own strength, we're going to get tired, we're going to get weary, we're going to get frustrated. But now, when more grace comes, when more grace comes, now we can begin to endure. The second thing is, when we try to navigate our way through the discomfort zone, greater character will be built. So greater grace is going to come upon you, but then greater character is going to be built. Because see, character has to do with the fact that we can endure trials without complaint, without murmuring. I think James says it in James chapter 1, count it all joy. We able to say it's all good. We able to allow our values and our morals not to be compromised, our character not to be compromised just because we're going through a situation. And so as we continue to press our way through, that character begins to show. Paul said it like this. He said, I was glad. He said, once I began to see it as a gift, I was glad that it happened, because I knew that it was growing me, that it was developing me, because I didn't see it like that at first, but now I understand there was a bigger plan. And so you got to understand that Any and everything that we go through, none of it does God allow to go to waste. It's all something that God can use to teach us a lesson, to refine us, to make us better. And that character is what carries us from, how the Bible says, from glory to glory and from faith to faith. And so when we go from level to level in life, from level to level in business, it's that character that takes us there. It's that character. People build business relationships, especially a lot of times, based on reputation and based on the fact that they know people and they have a track record of providing excellent service or providing an excellent product or whatever the case might be. And because that speaks to your character. The next thing that happens in the discomfort zone is that great humility will come. Great humility will come because you'll begin to come face to face with your own limitations. And when you become when you become intimate and acquainted with your own limitations, you have no choice but to be humble, because you'll begin to see yourself doing things, and you will be like Israel and New Breed, and able to say, if it had not been for your grace, where would I be? If it had not been. See, that shows humility, because now humility begins to come. And remember, James 4:6 said, but he gives more grace. He gives more grace. He opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. That favor can come upon your life. And so now you begin to move and operate in a different way, because you know it's not your own strength. The next thing that happens, there's a greater level of empathy that comes out of you from navigating the discomfort zone. There's a greater level of empathy that comes out of you from navigating this discomfort zone. Why? Because you now can identify with what someone else is going through. Y'all know sometimes, y'all, we can be real judgy. We can be real judgy. Let me say it again. We can be real judgy about how people go through things. We can be real religious with how people move and operate and live their life. But let me tell you something. When you begin to experience discomfort, when you begin to have to navigate your own discomfort zone, it'll bring a different level of empathy, and that will serve you well in life and in business. That will serve you well to be able to identify. The Bible even talks about that we don't have a high priest that can't identify with our infirmities. And so even Jesus, the things that he experienced, the things that he went through, it brought on for him the man side of him. It brought on a level of empathy where he could understand and he could identify. He could identify with what we were going through. And then last but certainly not least, when you navigate in a discomfort zone, it'll bring out a greater witness in you. It'll bring out a greater witness. Because at the very end, Paul says, I just let Christ take over. And so the weaker I get, the stronger I become. And so as that strength continues, then what's going to happen? Now he's going to continue. He continued to press on. Paul wrote a great majority of the New Testament. His missionary journeys are very, very well outlined in the New Testament. And what we can glean from this is that as we're going through life, one of the greater witnesses, one of the greatest ways for us to witness to people is going to be our life. It's going to be not only how we endure or how we navigate the times where it's all good, but what about how we navigate the times when it's not so good? How about when we navigate the times when it's challenging? Because when people can begin to see that, now your faith has a chance to speak for you. And now people can ask questions. I believe people would have came up to Paul and said, man, brother, you've been going through it, man. You done been shipwrecked. You done had 39 lashes saved one. You done been put in prison. Man, how you still standing? His grace is sufficient. His grace is more than enough. His grace is what kept me. Let me tell you about it. So there's a greater level of witness that can come when you can embrace, endure, and navigate your way through the discomfort zone. So let's talk about them again. Number one, in the discomfort zone, you will find greater grace, greater character, greater humility, greater empathy, and a greater witness. You will become a greater witness. All because you embraced, you endured, and you navigated your way through discomfort. I don't know about y'all, but I'm encouraged because I know that the discomfort zone is where new things happen. It's where new things happen. You think Jeff Bezos wasn't uncomfortable starting Amazon? You think Steve Jobs wasn't uncomfortable? You think Bill Gates wasn't uncomfortable? You think Michael Jordan wasn't uncomfortable signing that Nike shoe deal? Something that had never been seen, that had never been done. They weren't uncomfortable? Of course they were. But they navigated their way through it. The first thing they would have did, they would have had to embrace it. That's the limitation. See, I need to embrace this. I ain't going to go into this thinking I got it all figured out. I'm going to endure while I'm standing there. His grace is enough to keep me steadfast, unmovable. See, my strength is going to come. My strength is going to come because of him. So I ain't even worried about it. And now I'm just going to navigate my way through. And as I navigate my way through, I'm going to find greater grace. I'm going to find greater character, a greater level of humility, greater empathy, and a greater witness is going to be produced. Because the discomfort zone, whether we want to admit it or not, it produces. The comfort zone, it don't produce anything. But the discomfort zone, it produces. That's where innovation comes from. That's where new levels come from. That's where visions are birthed. Man, I don't, let me tell y'all something. If somebody would have told me 25 years ago that you gonna write not one book, but two, and then have some other ones on deck, I would have told them they was slap cuckoo crazy. Discomfort. Discomfort. But now I realize, just like the title of the ebook that I just released, you guys saw it here in the group. That's why the title is Nothing Wasted. Because the word of the Lord is that nothing that you've been through, nothing that you're going to go through, will he ever allow to be wasted. So all the discomfort, there's a purpose. We just got to pick up the pieces. We got to embrace. We got to endure. And then we begin to navigate our way through. One day at a time. But we do it under the understanding that we're limited in our strength. But he's not. He'll keep us if we'll allow him to. All right, y'all. That's the Breakfast Club. I hope y'all got something out of this. The discomfort zone. The discomfort zone. Man, we ain't going nowhere. We still here and we still got stuff to do. And even though things might be a little uncomfortable, we are not discouraged. The Bible uses the word dismayed. We are not dismayed. We are not in fear. For the Bible says that I will strengthen you and I'll help you and I'll uphold you with my righteous right hand. I think that's Isaiah 41:10. All right? Man, that's all I got, y'all. I hope y'all have a blessed day. I hope y'all have a blessed week. Man, y'all stay warm out there or stay cool out there. I don't know what the weather gonna do the rest of the day, but you know what? A big old God bless you to you. Be blessed, be encouraged, and as always, when we in the Breakfast Club, remember this: you can't get strong unless you lift heavy stuff. See y'all next week.